it just ignites something in the soul, bro, to like just see greatness live. But like I said, what would y'all do in this predicament? YouTube was good, bro. Now my chair's looking louder than me. This been some WD-40 money. Today we had ReZero Season 3 cut content. How the battle between Subaru and Regulus went. So with AniNews, when he did after part 2 on ReZero and his cut content, he kind of did it by battle instead of the episode. So my titles and videos gonna reflect the video itself.
To the overall
and by the way, amazing fight, y'all.
So,
amazing fight out there. Y'all was going crazy.
There was a bit more back and forth between him and Regulus.
Sheesh.
Regulus would call it a shame the wedding was about to become a wake, while Subaru would question the confidence from a guy who just got turned down.
This whole segment right here was insane.
What then caused Regulus to start using force wasn't Reinhardt's comment about him not being worthy, but rather Subaru's own comment insulting his persona. You see, for someone who's always called himself complete and perfect, Subaru found it odd that Regulus was always comparing himself to those he described as defective. It was a flaw in his logic that Regulus didn't like being pointed out. Now, Regulus's threat here wasn't just a bluff that risked every wife currently present. They were words he truly believed regardless of how nonsensical they were.
Bro, for real, bro. They say that.
To think he wouldn't have been
I think that's what I be saying when I'm talking about like each Synod Archbishop is like how whatever they be saying, it's like they be going straight, then they go completely off the rail, and then they like actually got this like devotion they got this devotion to it. So they'll take whatever word, they can just distort that shit, and it's like, hey, whatever they said, it went completely off the rail, and now they're murdering masses, and it's your fault. Like, okay, bro, how's it my fault?
The way he spoke clearly,
you just bodied 100 people. How's that my fault?
At no point did Regulus think anyone
they be gaslighters, bro, for real,
would be their murderers. It was an absurd notion of justice Regulus found zero lies in. It was when Amelia made the move which put herself into a worse situation that Reinhardt's obedience and Regulus' words respecting it would be some of the most logical things he's said ever. Aside from it being a commendable act of humility, the opportunity for diplomacy was what Regulus believed language had evolved for. To him, too many people tried to resolve things by force without first talking about it. So, for all the crazy things Regulus had said before, it seems there are a couple times when he does make a bit of sense.
That's what I was just saying, literally.
In this case, it was to express a demand most wouldn't consider fair at all.
Yeah, then he
initially said demand was to die by his hand, but considering how impolite it would be to ask him that, Regulus instead showed gratitude to Reinhardt and offered what we saw in the anime. Him dying then led to an interesting comment from Regulus, since it's kind of ironic for a guy.
No matter what kind of life we lead, death comes all too quickly. However great the achievements, however terrible the sins, death comes for all equally. In this world where all sorts of inequality goes unpunished, death is a kind and cruel equalizer. It's funny coming from him, bro.
Death being this cruel equalizer. Interestingly enough,
nice try, buddy.
It seems even Regulus knew death would eventually come for him too.
Right.
It's for that reason that he described himself as someone satisfied with the smaller things. As a person who proclaims to not want much, knowing the end was imminent was why he lived life continually seeking out joy. It was also that when that time finally came, he could say he was content. It was after reviving and attacking with Amelia's sword that the weapon would crumble away from the force of it. The fact it lasted long enough to create the impact it did, though, was an exceptional feat that spoke volumes to its creator. Not many weapons could withstand the power Reinhardt put into them. Now,
damn, that boy Reinhardt aura, bro. He's just aura itself.
According to him, it allows him to revive from a single death. I'm assuming that means it can only be used once, but that doesn't mean he can't just manifest another blessing that does the exact same thing.
Who knows what he can, bro?
We saw blessings come to him when he needed them, so I imagine Reinhardt can just ask for whatever now. Regulus returning from the rubble.
But then again, his grandma, well, I'm sure y'all already watched this. Then again, his grandma is literally in the city fighting his grandpa, but not even with his grandma. She's getting I don't even know, curse or whatever, like, you know, whatever it actually is that's making her still move and fight. But, and they like kept her body in, like, I don't know what that actually is called, but that right there is insane. Like, yeah, he is goated, but then like you look at this, it's like, yo, and then look at the responsibility that come with the power. It's like everybody play their role, and that's one thing ReZero does very well, is they play their roles, bro. You got Subaru, he might not have all this power, but he can bring people together, he can do. And then you got Reinhardt, he got power, but like it's certain areas that he might not be the best in that other people pick up in. So I just like to see like how everybody is. But hey, the fact this Phoenix I forgot, Phoenix Spirit, yeah, that, hey, when I seen it, I was like, what? I was like, bro, there's no way. I knew he wasn't dead like that easy, but like still.
Complete person, along with remarks regarding their.
I'll be tired hearing Regulus talk. Wow, bro.
It was when hearing those iconic statements Greed was known for that Amelia would start to remember something. She couldn't help but feel that she'd met him somewhere.
Yeah, for real.
So, rather than just keep herself guessing, Amelia decided to ask Regulus straight to his face. It was a question to which he answered no. Regulus had no memory of ever coming across her before.
Oh, he don't? So how did she become 79?
This was just her trying to trick him, and that led to a series of insults regarding her infidelity. As words Subaru couldn't stand to accept, he quickly flung his whip right at Regulus's face.
Hey,
of
Subaru
course,
be
it
on
did
that.
no damage, but it did, however, stop his rant before he could insult Amelia more.
Yeah, he like, watch your mouth type
Regulus
shit.
was about to make Subaru pay for that's when Reinhardt would send him flying. Bringing us now to the new battlefield that was the entire city of Restella.
His power was tough, though. I ain't gonna lie. Greed power is tough.
To deal with the wives.
Regulus
this was a challenge of its own because Regulus's hold on their heart was unbreakable. An interesting interaction which highlighted exactly.
I was like, hold on, am I misunderstanding that? I have to keep asking myself.
When Subaru suggested Reinhardt could beat Regulus. You see, unlike how Sylphie remained emotionless in the anime, in the novel she instead laughed at Subaru like he was a child spouting a fairy tale.
I figured, that's how I thought they was gonna react. I thought they was gonna laugh at him. I know they kept quiet, but I thought they was gonna laugh at him like he's funny, he just spouting nonsense. That's literally how I thought. I'm like, that's kind of how I seen it, because bro, the way Regulus has just been bodying motherfuckers and just doing this shit for so long. Like I was saying in my episode reaction, like, I don't know who knows how long he been bodying. I'm talking about straight bodying people, y'all. Think about it, bro. If this is just what we seen on cam, this is just what we seen when we interacted, bro. He's like, he said, I didn't kill their families. He was like, oh, I killed their families, and she didn't laugh ever. I'm like, bro, he's just, bro, like, it's crazy, bro. It's like, yo.
All the other wives next to her.
But then he's the most content man, bro. I don't get it, bro.
There wasn't anything Subaru could say that would change that.
If I should put WD-40 in my chair, let me know.
Being the unstoppable force and the immovable object, you'd think their matchup would be a tie all the way through. This, however,
bro, I think his lack of skill,
there
bro.
were constant shifts in momentum in which either side looked like they could win.
Oh, for real? Okay.
So, first it was very easily Reinhardt, since with Regulus being an amateur who knew very little about the technical aspects of combat,
exactly, just
keeping
out
up
there.
with him was straight up impossible. There was no way for Regulus to effectively counter at all, so all he could do was toss his hands haphazardly in every direction.
He was going
For
hard.
Subaru, who was watching all this happen, Reinhardt's speed made it look like he was in 16 places at once. Neither him nor Regulus could keep up with what Reinhardt was doing. Even Reinhardt was well aware of this skill disparity himself, so when Regulus had asked out of shock what he was, not only did Reinhardt have time to state his position as Felt's knight, he was also able to advertise his hopes of garnering Regulus's support in the election. I'm sure this was just Reinhardt garnering Regulus's support in the...
He's trolling. He knew Regulus was not finna lead this spot. Talking about garner hit. Nah, I ain't gonna lie, Reinhardt, you're just different, bro. What? You stepping on your ass mid-air talking about garnering? What? Nah, you okay.
I'm sure this was just Reinhardt being Reinhardt, but from Regulus's perspective, it was BS.
Trolling.
I mean, clearly he wasn't being taken seriously. What Reinhardt was able to learn from his various attacks here, though, was that Regulus's invincibility differed from the way his blessings worked. It seemed the rules that applied to both their powers were very much different. So, it was as Regulus continued to get knocked around that he would heavily criticize the violence Reinhardt seemed to rely on so much. This enabled Regulus to call Reinhardt a villain,
who's saying that, though.
That was an assessment Reinhardt couldn't necessarily disagree with. Perhaps this was Reinhardt just being modest, but for him there was some truth to it. He wasn't gonna shy away from the fact that his methods were essentially victory by overwhelming force. This made talking to Regulus be like looking deep into a mirror at himself, and it was from that he now understood why Subaru advised not to listen to him. Such self-reflection was something Regulus couldn't care less for, though, so he quickly started talking to Subaru next. It was an unacceptable act Reinhardt couldn't stand for, leading him to drag Regulus's head across the pavement and plow the streets with it.
He
would
put
then
in this
set him
whole
up
living
with this
clip.
beautifully artistic ice attack, a plan Subaru himself described as a cheese strat. It was after when Subaru.
I like when Subaru be using
he
like
would start
modern
to
lingo.
feel
That'd be
guilty for
tough.
teaming up on Regulus. Given how he had a new appreciation for life, Subaru honestly didn't like the idea of killing anymore. He knew all too well that only terrible things came from revenge. So, it was for that reason Subaru did feel remorse right now, but considering how archbishops were an unfathomable evil that couldn't be left alive, this to him was the exception. Now,
That's tough.
I'm sure you deduced each of Subaru's plans was part of an overall plan to figure out how Regulus's invulnerability worked, so the fact he came out of this without even being wet, well, that clearly indicated this wasn't some sort of enhanced defense ability. No, if anything, they knew now that this was something fundamentally different. Perhaps a power related to his ability to casually walk on water. It's then that Reinhardt would grab his sword back from Subaru, but despite it still not budging from its sheath, Reinhardt's own opinion was different now. His assessment was that Regulus was dangerous. His only choice then was to swing his sword with the sheath on, highlighting a mindset that
Put him in
the strong
to the moon.
You see, it was only those who were truly powerful that never saw the need for subtlety or tricks. With overwhelming force always being the most successful, that was the only tool they ever needed to rely on. So, this would lead to an intense clash the anime left out, which is a bit unfortunate since it showed Regulus taking the fight a bit more seriously.
Okay.
Like, where before he was getting tossed around like a ragdoll, now every hit didn't even move him an inch. Despite each blow being strong enough to kill any other person hundreds of times over, there just didn't seem to be any sort of impact anymore. The two had reached yet another even deadlock. This was a tie that didn't last for long though, as during an incredible bout of close quarters combat, Reinhardt would get his leg literally exploded by an attack from Regulus. It wasn't from any of the projectiles Regulus had produced though, but rather his own breath he turned into a weapon.
What?
A mere sigh had allowed Regulus to attack from a place Reinhardt least expected. That's what led him to get kicked away, removing him from the battle despite Amelia's best efforts to stop him. Though we didn't see it in the anime, she had actually summoned several walls of ice to slow Reinhardt down.
What happened to my boy Reinhardt? Be honest.
Reinhardt least expected. That's what led him to get kicked away, removing him from the battle despite Amelia's best efforts to stop him.
Side note, since he threw in that Gojo clip, I gotta say this. I actually started reading JJK manga recently. Crazy.
Though we didn't see it in the
I'm almost
anime,
done.
she had actually summoned several walls of ice to slow Reinhardt down, none of which worked as he would instead fly right through, leaving this unnatural human-shaped gap behind him. And that's a point we'll soon find out is very important. Regulus's ensuing argument with Amelia would result in straight-up misogyny, followed by that crazy scene with the water cube. This led to their retreat down the waterway, which at first was using only their shoes, up until Subaru made the suggestion to create skates.
W panel.
It's not
I'm gonna have to read the manga.
Amelia had practiced making before,
Would y'all want me to read manga?
What she did practice was lots of image training with Subaru. Her ice brand arts was a technique Subaru taught her, and that practiced communication from it is what allowed her to make these skates. Amelia's counterattack along them was a futile effort Regulus could only describe as pointless resistance. And
that was so tough though when she did it, I ain't gonna lie.
In the face of someone
I was a big fan.
Strength, well, that's what Regulus considered a denial of his right to be himself. To him, fighting back was them showing lack of consideration for their opponent.
Hey, but he's
Regulus's
funny.
chase would then continue
He be a straight demon
what we saw in the anime, since even after leveling out on even ground, Regulus would continue his pursuit while Subaru and Amelia would continue to run away. How did Amelia and Subaru maintain their momentum while not sliding downward anymore? Well, that was due to an incredible display of finesse from Subaru's skills with the whip. You see, Amelia would have to create projectiles of ice, which would then serve as self-propelled rockets for Subaru to latch onto. As soon as the icicle they were attached to started to lose velocity, Amelia would make another one, then Subaru would latch onto that. So, altogether it was a pretty difficult game of target switching, since not only did Subaru have to accurately land his whip while they were moving, there was also a very small window in which the switch was possible.
But he been in
Plus,
training, bro.
The added speed making it impossible for the lesser spirits to keep freezing the water, Subaru and Amelia were essentially water skiing now. any mistake would send them headfirst into the canal. That being the case, Subaru could only pray to whatever greater power that would listen. He even sent some prayers to his master. It was during this chase that an interesting observation was made, since it was whenever Amelia would try to disrupt Regulus with a massive barricade of ice that he would just glide through it like it wasn't even there. A human-shaped tunnel would form in whatever she dropped on him. This was a peculiar interaction that got Subaru thinking, cause when Reinhardt had gotten hit back here, the gaps that formed in Amelia's ice walls were human-shaped too. They didn't shatter like how they normally would had they been hit with something forceful. They kinda just made space in a way that was completely unnatural. So, whatever move Regulus used to send Reinhardt flying here is the same move he used now to make clear whatever was blocking him. It was an essential clue that helped Subaru to figure out Regulus's power.
That boy Subaru was cooking, bro. I
One
ain't
we
gonna lie.
unfortunately didn't get to see in the anime. Now, it was then that Reinhardt would make his return, revealing a healed leg and yet another reason for Regulus to yell at him. Once again, Reinhardt would be villainized for being more less than the
I love them Subaru moments where we see my boy Shaun, like, man, it just ignites something in the soul. That was hard for me to say that, I don't know why. It just ignites something in the soul, bro, to like just see greatness live. But like I said, what would y'all do in this predicament? Like, bro, I would think that just the mere terror from just what is going on getting to you, let alone performing this and still maintaining life, bro. But hey, Reinhardt back, he about to cook, you know what's up.
Too. It made Regulus think Reinhardt was the type of person who crushed people's dreams just by existing. Regulus's assumption here was wrong though, since Reinhardt's leg healing was by no effort of his own. It was simply healed by the lesser spirits in the atmosphere that were worried for him. Reinhardt would then proceed with
Plan they just love him,
combined
bro.
with attempts at Plan A and S in the process. All had failed, but at the very least, Reinhardt was buying some time again. It gave Subaru a chance to consider everything he's
Look at his hand, just casually. He's still
this
cooking,
led to
yeah.
the connection with the stars, which, just like the Japanese architecture here, all pointed to the existence of someone other than him who was pulled into this world. There was clear influence lingering from Subaru's old world. I won't get into the full train of thought Subaru used to unveil Regulus's power, but the nickname for his star in the Leo constellation was clue enough. Amelia's answer to what she felt here also confirms Subaru's suspicions everything Regulus showed until now wasn't just mere invincibility. This then led to the question, was Regulus's heart beating, which was an answer Reinhardt actually had to sacrifice a lot to learn. Not only was he literally tossed into the moon, but Regulus's attack was so forceful it actually crushed his shoulder blade. It was the third time Reinhardt had taken damage now. With Reinhardt now gone though, Regulus was confident the fight was over.
He threw that boy to the moon, bro.
Would show some sort of despair, but instead they seemed to be enjoying themselves. It was quite the shock considering the punishment they were about to face. Regulus would call them names, trying to pressure them into seeing things his way, but Subaru would just
nobody gonna see it your way, bro.
He would
That's what I love about Subaru. He did not back down.
All in an effort to extend their time with him. The reason he believed this was the best course of action was because through all his encounters with Regulus so far, Subaru realized he couldn't win without patronizing and dominating his opponent first.
Mentally, too.
For Subaru to stand there and
especially since he's so, like, childlike.
Well, that made it so Regulus still had a long way to go. Like, the only reason Regulus went along with any of their gambits so far was because that was all part of showing them how futile their efforts were. Until they fully understood that nothing worked, Regulus would continue to let them try until they did. He needed to see them reach the darkest pits of despair. This was a weakness Subaru knew he could exploit for extra time, since Regulus's need to show how complete and perfect he was
at an all-time high
as fast as possible. It's the reason we see him get so mad every time they fight back against him. They refused to acknowledge his dominance no matter how many times they failed. Amelia would then launch her attack, buying time for her to leave while Subaru could run away himself. Regulus couldn't help but be annoyed by the fleeing target in front of him, leading to a chase down where Subaru would have to use parkour to avoid getting caught. He would dodge his attacks as masterfully as he could, then climb 3 stories to a rooftop as agile as ever. Regulus may not have been able to get him there, but what he was able to do was knock that building over like it was nothing. Subaru
course,
would just
just
jump to the next, but once again, Regulus would follow him and
bro,
topple
look at
that
his
one
body,
even
bro.
too.
Look at his tracksuit.
It was a cycle of
That tracksuit
destruction
has seen
that would
everything.
repeat until Subaru found himself inside a building climbing a stairwell looking for a way out. Things looked relatively bleak, but after remembering the wise words of his parkour master, that message of survival reminded him of the attitude he needed to face in every situation. It was a self-taught discipline that supported his frail heart.
There's always a way out of any given moment, guaranteed. So do not neglect the work needed to find it. The moment you give up is the moment you die. That is fate. Hey, low key, his master was cooking. He gave Subaru the keys to life, bruh. Okay.
In the worst of situations. So, as tired as he was and as bleak as things looked, Subaru knew there had to be some way out. That's when the exact words he needed to say dawned on him, leading him to yell them out despite dodging through windows and avoiding rubble. It probably wasn't the safest thing to do, but it was certainly the best bet to make considering the situation he was in.
Not for
Subaru
real.
had analyzed Regulus's personality enough to know that this would be the one thing he'd respond to. Sure enough, Regulus's curiosity to know what it is Subaru knew led him to seize his destruction instantly.
Which is crazy.
Subaru would then get himself to somewhere safe and explain the mentality which allowed him to get to this point. Put simply, Regulus is pretty much like Homelander. He craves for others' approval and needs to be the center of attention always. He constantly speaks of being free of desire and brags of being perfectly fulfilled, but even with all that, he can't live without other people constantly affirming his worth.
Exactly.
It's for that reason he projects his insecurities and values on everyone else.
Talk your stuff, bro.
He needs to feel superior to them because he's narrow-minded and petty like that. He doesn't want to boast about winning because he's strong. He wants to force everyone to lose because he's afraid of himself. So the only satisfaction he gets is from that physical and verbal proof he's better than someone. To not break his opponent's spirit in its entirety, well, that just wasn't good enough to affirm his superiority. That's why when Subaru claimed he knew Regulus's powers, Regulus was so interested in hearing about it despite him being able to cut Subaru down right
then and there. That's what I was thinking.
Closed the gap to be right in front of him.
Hey, that's what I was thinking, like, bro, Regulus. Like, but like that's one thing. It's like I love how I say I love ReZero. But they pull off such beautiful play. I would just say they play on characteristics so well. That's the best way to put it. Like certain characteristics you'll find in people in right mindsets, they'll play it, and he'll drag it to an extreme or he'll do whatever, but it doesn't paint a very clear picture of the vibe of what's going on. So you're in a death battle with somebody that can obviously do a lot of damage. That's just putting it in layman terms, but you are basically subduing him. Not gonna say subduing him, really just buying time, but still you're getting an advantage over him just by messing and tempering with his ego and his sense of need for external validation. Like that's such a beautiful way of playing on characters right here. Like I love what he does. Like that's why I always love ReZero, bro. Like I said, the first two seasons mainly to get revisited.
Nothing though, because part of affirming superiority included entertaining Subaru's futile efforts. It meant hearing words that ultimately made no difference to him. That being the case, this then left Subaru with two options only. He could keep BSing and stall for time, or he could answer in increments, gauge Regulus's reaction, and go from there. The latter is what we saw in the anime, but the reason he didn't go with the former is because in the off chance he did say something completely wrong, Regulus would likely deem that an absolute victory and
they kill him right there. Right, he ain't gonna wait.
It's then that Subaru would reveal the whole Lion's Heart
That's what I'm saying, but Subaru
that's
also
a comprehensive topic.
And Subaru himself is like a very introspective, I would say. Is that the word? Like basically like the way he gets read into situations and the way he's grown that ability and finesse it, and like that's kind of like with the Auto and the merchants too. It's kind of like how they got that finesse. They always just know their way in and out of situation. They just know how to get to the next step. They might not know where they going and how they gonna get there, but they just know. They got the intuition to trust their next step. Like that's inspirational for real.
We'll talk about in the next ReZero video. For now, I hope you enjoyed this one, along with all the details leading up to the climax of the fight.
Alright y'all, that's the end of today's reaction, man. Hey, if y'all want more ReZero Cut content, let me know by smashing the like button, subscribe if you're new. We're on the way to 4,000 subscribers. Keep an eye out for ReZero content and more episode reactions and cut content. We're gonna get through this and then we can figure out where we're going from here. If you guys want manga, if you guys want me to revisit season 1 and 2, things like that. But with that being said, my name is Don. Welcome to the Don Crew, and I'll see y'all in the next one, man. Peace.